Today, I have come to Kawasaki of Bellevue, my local Kawasaki dealer / MV Agusta dealer, where they have allowed me to take this motorcycle, the brand spanking new 2024 ZX6R, for a test ride. We're gonna go over some performance numbers, some safety features, some creature comfort features, and then I'm gonna take it out on the road and ride it and give it an Emmy score. As far as the horsepower figures, there is no claimed horsepower on Kawasaki's website. Obviously, a lot of manufacturers don't advertise the horsepower because the horsepower is very restricted by the ECU that they have to put in these bikes to comply with the Euro 4 and 5 emission standards. So they avoid just altogether telling you a number, but dynoed ZX6Rs of this 2024 generation put about 120 to 130 horsepower down at the rear wheel. That's a pretty healthy figure for a ZX6R, for a 600cc motorcycle, except if you compare this motorcycle to its competition, it's about 10, 15, 20 pounds heavier than respective Honda, Suzuki, or Yamaha models in the 600 series motorcycle. So you are getting that extra 36 cc's, but you're also gaining some weight here. Other competitors in this segment, the CBR 600 RR, that has a 599cc engine. The Yamaha R6 also had the same figure, but it's discontinued. Now Yamaha has the R7. For Suzuki, you have Gixxer 600 that also has 599 cc. So if you really want to tell your friends that you have the highest cc 600cc motorcycle, you're going to have to pick this one because it has 636 cc's. Now let's talk front brakes. You have 310 millimeter rotors, 2 of them on both sides of the wheel. You have the Nissin brand calipers, 4-piston calipers, so 2 pistons on one side, 2 pistons on the other side, and they push the brake pads onto your rotor. Nissin is Kawasaki's in-house brand for their cheaper, more economic motorcycles. When you move up to ZX10Rs like RR, or when you move up to the Ninja H2, these calipers get replaced with the Italian manufacturer Brembo for better performance, quite frankly. So that's what you have for the front brakes. As for the front tires, it is the standard 120/70 ZR17 tires. I really haven't come across any other motorcycle in the super sport category that has other size for the front tire than this standard one. Rear tire, however, that differs between the 600 series and the 1000 series of motorcycle. Sometimes 600s and 1000s have the same size, sometimes they don't. Let's figure out what it is on this one. If you decide to disregard this behemoth of a slip-on, obviously the first thing that anybody's gonna take off this bike and put their own, behind it you're gonna see the rear tire, which is 180/55 ZR17. You can change the aspect ratio of 180 and 55 to maybe 60 or other tire size. That is applicable still to this rim. You could put a slightly wider tire on it, but that's what it comes with from the factory. It comes with a 180/55 ZR17. Pirelli is the brand of both tires, and that's what Kawasaki's all come with, the Pirelli tires. As far as the brake pad goes here, you have the same Nissin caliper here. The difference is it's just 2 pistons. 1 piston on that side, 1 piston on the other side, and they push onto your brake pads onto this rotor. This is the ABS model, Kawasaki KRT ABS, and you can also see the ABS grid here within the rotor. Now the biggest change for the 2024 model is this front design, this front cowl. First of all, now the windshield is entirely bolted onto the frame all the way to the top. If you look at the previous generation ZX6Rs, the frame only comes up to about here, and the rest of the windshield is just sticking up as though it's not supported by anything. So that was one design change they made. The other design changes are these 2 scoops, 2 air scoops that the air goes through and comes out the other side. They don't have any engine venting or cooling purposes, but they do make the air push the bike down, create some downforce, similar to the effect of those wings that some motorcycles have. Next thing you have are these LED lights. Finally, Kawasaki, since very recently ditched those ugly yellow halogen bulbs, and they have gone to this blue design. If I turn the bike on, you can see they are blue. They make the bike look a lot more modern. In addition to all of that, you still have ZX6Rs and ZX10Rs signature ram mount vents right here, where at high speeds, passively the air just rushes into the engine to cool it down and to also provide air for the internal combustion chamber. Next thing you can notice are these two little flaps that are here. This reminds me of the Ninja H2, which started back in 2015 with this design of having these two flaps, and they are essentially guiding the air into the scoops that are designed on the two sides of the cowl. It's here. Finally, in 2024, we have the TFT screen. Let's have a deep dive into the screen and see how it works. All right, here is the view of the screen. Hopefully you guys can see it with the sun glare on it. That's another problem with this thing, is that it's very reflective. But here's the deal. When you push this button, without the bike making it a big deal, it just jumps into the next category. That's it. It's now in road, and if you keep it down, it's going to jump into rain mode, and then if you keep it down, it's going to go to the custom rider mode. Now if you do the same thing for on Ducatis, for example, the whole like pictures and colors change here, and there's an explosion of changes that happen. Over here, no, that word just very, very subtle. That word just changes into other modes. So that speaks to the Kawasaki's real goal and philosophy here, is that it's function over form. It just gets straight to the point instead of wanting to distract you with all those other extra things that nobody cares about. But the most important thing is the fuel gauge. You finally have a good fuel gauge that shows you exactly how much gas you've left, instead of the older generations of ZX6R where you just had a fuel light. It would light up when you were about to run out of gas, and it would not be lit up if you had enough gas. So this is a welcome change. Next up, let's briefly mention the transmission. Not much change compared to the previous generations. You still have a 6-speed manual transmission, and you also have the Kawasaki quick shifter, only the up direction. I am unsure if when you go ECU flash your motorcycle, they will be able to program the downshift in it as well. I remember I had a bike in the past from Kawasaki, and even though it had no quick shifter, without updating any of the equipment here, when I took it to my dyno shop, they programmed the bike so that it has quick shifter up and down with auto blipper. So I wonder if you can add that to this motorcycle, but as it comes out factory, it's only upshift, quick shifter, and that's it. No downshift. You have to actually hold the clutch in and downshift. While we're here speaking about the transmission of this motorcycle, let's talk about the rear shock. Again, on the higher models of Kawasaki, like the Ninja H2, you have an all-in shock here, so it's upgraded. But for the more economic versions, like the ZX6R, you have a unitrack suspension, and it has some adjustability to it. You don't have a nice swift gear to rotate and adjust it. You have to actually grab the wrench and go down there to the teeth of this and adjust the preload and other adjustments on it directly onto that shock, which makes sense. This is, you know, more of a racetrack oriented motorcycle. You just set it up once with your height and weight and the riding style you have, and then you're pretty much set. You don't have to continuously change the settings. But on the more higher end versions of Kawasaki, you are able to adjust it with a dial when it's the all-in version of this rear shock. On the front, you have the Showa inverted forks. You can see them here, and it has adjustability at the top. It's obviously not, at this price point, you don't expect this motorcycle to have wired electronics shocks where you just push a button on the screen and it changes the configuration of this fork, but it is a welcome change that now the shocks are fully adjustable, and they're the inverted Showa version. Showa would only show up usually on the ZX10R, on the more expensive version, the leader bike version of this motorcycle, but now it's on the ZX6R as well. As far as creature comfort features go, this motorcycle is really racetrack oriented, so we can't expect much from it to have those types of features like the ADV bikes, the adventure touring style bikes. It doesn't have grip heaters, it doesn't have cruise control, it doesn't have a good storage, it doesn't have a big enough screen that prevents air from hitting you in the helmet. You know, those are some features you see on those other bikes, but at this price point and on a super sport bike, you don't see any of those, because the point of this is not to be comfortable on, it's to just go and go fast. I tried to use the key and go under the bike and tried to open the passenger seat, remove it, and there's often a bit of storage under that seat on these types of motorcycles. I couldn't get that open for some reason, but what happens is when I put the key in there, it opens the driver's seat, the rider's seat, this one, and gives me access to the battery, which is good. That means I don't need a screwdriver or anything to go into the battery compartment. I just put the key and remove the seat, and there it is, the battery. But I cannot figure out how to open the storage, if there is any. Now, what are the available colors on this motorcycle? Well, it comes in 3 colors. It comes in white, and it comes in black, and it comes in my favorite color, the Kawasaki Racing Team Green, which is this black, red, and green combo. Kawasaki calls it the KRT, short for Kawasaki Racing Team. And it comes at no extra charge, which is the interesting part. So I don't really know why would anyone go for the other colors when this interesting color is available. And that's it. With all that said and done, let's take this motorcycle out on the road and see how it rides. Unfortunately, due to the technical issues, my sound was lost for the test ride portion of this video. However, I decided to dub over the video with the most noticeable characteristics of this motorcycle that I noticed during the test ride. The front braking felt a bit spongy, and I think the versions of Kawasaki that come with the Brembo brakes offer a better braking experience than the Nissin braking system. The ZX6R has an extremely aggressive riding position caused by the seat being too high and the handlebar being too low and the foot pegs being pushed to the back. Definitely could be problematic in long commutes. Despite riding in a warm and sunny day, the motorcycle does not seem to get too hot, which is always a good thing for a super sport motorcycle. As for the mode change, the bike does not allow you to go into different modes while any throttle is being applied. So even if in motion, you can let go of the throttle, and while the bike is coasting, you can change your riding mode. However, some other bikes will change mode on demand without having you release your throttle and coast down a road, a public road, which could be dangerous. Even though the suspensions were not set up properly for my height and weight, the riding experience was the smoothest I've had in a while. The clutch, although is cable and not hydraulic, it is very well designed and very easy to pull. And now moving on to the EMI score. In the commuter category, the bike's riding position is amongst one of the most aggressive ones I have experienced, giving it a 1 out of 10. The fuel tank is surprisingly big for a super sport motorcycle. It is 4.5 gallon capacity tank, and the presence of a fuel gauge is definitely helpful during a commute, so it gets a 7 out of 10. As far as commute-specific tech goes, the ZX6R has no cruise control, no heated grips, no navigation system of any sort, and it earns it a 1 out of 10. Storage is very limited to almost non-existent in the ZX6R. If you're planning to carry anything more than your title and registration, you should be prepared to carry a backpack. ZX6R gets a 2 out of 10 in the storage category. An important factor making a bike a greater commuter bike is the dispensability, reliability, and dealership network. The ZX6R is one of the better priced supersport bikes and benefits from the reliability of a Japanese bike. Kawasaki also has one of the best dealership networks in the United States, earning it a 7 out of 10 for a total of 18 out of 50 points for the commute category. No surprise that commute is not ZX6R's strong suit. In the performance category, however, the ZX6R's aggressive seating position means better aerodynamics and better rider's control in corners and twisties, earning it a 9 out of 10. The horsepower figure being around 120 to 130, and the torque value is claimed to be around 51 foot per pound of torque at 11,500 RPM, which earns it a 6 out of 10. Leader bikes earn higher scores than 600cc class of motorcycles in this category, so expected that a 600cc is about 6 out of 10. ZX6R is pretty heavy for its class, at 430 pounds wet, about 20 pounds heavier than the CB R600RR and Yamaha R6, making it earn a 5 out of 10. And finally, rider aids technology is very limited to only the upper shift quick shifter, Kawasaki's traction control, and the ABS system, earning it a 5 out of 10. As for ZX6R's looks and design philosophy, it is an aggressive looking bike with the winglet design and air vents and all. But the main air scoop in the center and Kawasaki's conservative rear end design diminishes the overall look slightly, making it earn the ZX6R a 5 out of 10 for a total performance score of 30 out of 50. This earns the ZX6R a total score of 48 out of 100, which places it here currently on my spreadsheet, but this is my first bike ever that I am reviewing on my channel. As more bikes are reviewed, a better comparison is going to be formed in this Excel sheet here. If you are a track warrior with a more conservative taste and are looking for a relatively cheap super sport motorcycle, the ZX6R definitely deserves to be at the top of your list.